Coming to question number 2, that is a question is about constitutionality of administrative state, right? So let me read the question once. The administrative state is the creation of a power to bind us with the rules that are not made by legislature. Discuss the constitutionality of administrative state and its future. Alright, so the administrative state is the creation of a power to bind us with the rules. Alright, the question surrounds around, it revolves around the administrative state. So bureaucratic state. Alright, a state that is governed, a state that is dominated by administrative rules. A state that is dominated by administrative law. Simply, administrative state or a bureaucratic state is nothing but a state that is governed, that is dominated by administrative law. That means those laws which are made by administration but not by the legislature. The question itself gives the answer, right? So now, do this administrative state or bureaucratic state which is based upon administrative law has any constitutionality? So that is what the question. So first of all, we need to define what is administrative state, reasons for growth of administrative state, that is simply reasons for the growth of administrative law and its impact on administrative state. Alright, so what is the reason for this? So we can use here, alright, different factors, alright, the traditional factors and the contemporary factors. Then coming to the point of the constitutionality of administrative state. Alright, so now here we should bring out the importance of control over administrative law. Alright, so how the administrative law and administrative state is controlled by the constitutional law or the constitutional state. Now that means what? I mean a state that is guided by constitution, a state that is guided by the law of people, law of parliament. So now constitutionality of administrative state lies in control over administrative state by constitution as well as by legislature. So how constitutional ensures control over this administrative law, and how parliament or how legislature will control the administrative law. So simply the question is about control over administrative law and administrative state. Alright, so the constitutionality of this administrative state lies in control over this administrative state. So not only we have control by constitution or control by legislature, but even the citizen control. So the contemporary controls are citizens control. Alright, so this is how we should give the answer. Alright, so what is its future? The future lies alright, in having control over such administrative state. Alright, so once again define what is administrative state, reasons for the growth of administrative state, and here you can use, as I said, alright, the factors as given by Gerald Gaiden, right? So alright, so it is Gerald Gaiden who talked about this. what you call reasons for the growth of administrative state. Alright, so growth of public administration, you can also use the same kind of factors even for the growth of administrative state. The contemporary what you call factor, that is those factors after the emergence of LPG. Alright, and then talk about constitutionality of administrative state. Then its future lies in control over administrative state in the form of constitutional control, legislative control and citizen control. Right, so this should be the crux of the answer. So every answer or any answer should revolve around these points. Right, so let us now move to the next question. The question is on leadership role again. So the question is on transformational leadership. Transformational leadership requires high degree of coordination, communication and cooperation. Explain. Alright, so transformational leadership requires high degree of coordination, communication and cooperation. Alright, so first of all, what is this transformational leadership? What is transformational leadership? So it is a part of contemporary theories of leadership. Right, so how this transformational leadership, is different from transactional theory of leadership. Not only from transactional theory of leadership, how it is different from traditional theories of leadership. Alright, then bring out the different functions performed by leadership, or functions of transformational leaders. Alright, and the qualities that are required for transformational leaders. Alright, so here the question shall gives the answer: high degree of coordination, communication. So what is coordination? What kind of coordination is required? So what kind of communication? It would be much better if you can use, right, the views of Bernard here. Right, so Bernard, and where it is Bernard who talked about leaderships and qualities of leadership. Right, so coordination, communication and cooperation. How to ensure cooperation? Right, what need to be coordinated, what kind of communication is required, and how to promote cooperation. Sorry, so highlight the qualities of leadership, transformational leader. Right, then conclude the answer that transformational leader is the need of the hour in the present day organizations, not only organizations but even for public sector units or public administrators. Right, the present day administrators, the present day civil servants, they need the qualities of a transformational leaders. Right, so with this point conclude the answer. Going to the next question. Human relations postulates that what is important to a worker and what influences his or her productivity level may not be the organizational chart but his or her associations with the other workers. Is it more relevant today? It is simply about the basic assumptions theory of human relations theory, the basic assumptions and the theory of human relations theory as given by Elton Mayo and its present day relevance. Alright, so human relations postulated what is important to a worker and what influences the worker's productivity level. Alright, may not be the organizational chart but his or her association with the other workers. Alright. So what is its impact or what is its relevant? So according to what is human relations theory, first of all, what is this theory is, what are the basic assumptions? So we can use what is regarded as cornerstone of human relations theory. Alright. So what is regarded as cornerstone of what we call this social sciences, right? The relation between moral, the relationship between productivity and supervision. So here coming to this second question. The second question is about, that is second C. It is a question on human relations theory or the impact and the relevance of human relations theory. Alright. Human relations postulate that what is important to a worker and what influences his or her productivity level may not be the organizational chart but his or her associations with the other workers. Is it more relevant today? Alright. So question, when you see the lines of question, these lines of the questions they seem to be what you call more complex, but when we break this, it is very easy to answer. Alright. So what is human relations theory? What is human relations theory? What are the basic postulates of? What are the basic postulates of human relations theory? Alright. And how this human relations theory promotes productivity. Alright. Right now, here you can use also the link between supervision, moral and productivity. You can also bring out the Elton Mayo's Hawthorne experiment and its importance in increasing productivity of an organization. Alright. So, and what do you call conclude the answer. That is, here our answer should focus on the basic postulates of human relations theory, postulates which cannot be defined by an organization. Alright. Those postulates, right, which are not defined in the organizational chart, which are not mentioned in the organizational chart. Say for example, the kind of human relations, the kind of relations between the workers, role of informal organizations, alright, role of human oriented supervision. So which are not defined in the organization, and it is not possible to define these postulates in the organization, though they are not defined in the organization but plays an important role in promoting the productivity. This is what proved by Elton Mayo through his Hawthorne experiments. Alright. So we need to highlight the essence of this Hawthorne experiment and its impact on productivity. Right. So that should be the crux of the answer. Our answer, the crux of the answer lies in this second point. Alright. So it would be much better and impressive if we can use this relation between supervision, moral and productivity, which is regarded as a cornerstone of social sciences. Alright. The logic of efficiency will not go along with the logic of sentiment. The logic of sentiment versus logic of efficiency, which was proved by Hawthorne experiment, right, by Elton Mayo, which is again treated as a cornerstone of human relations movement. So if you can highlight these kind of points in the answer, definitely you will get a very good marks. Alright, so now coming to the relevance. Alright, so these basic postulates of human relations theory, they always have a lasting importance. They are long lasting, always they are important. That means not an organizational productivity and success of an organization does not depend solely upon the organizational chart or the formalistic aspects, but also depends equally on informal aspects, informal organizations, that is those aspects which are not defined in the organization chart. Right, so we should give importance, equal importance to both formally defined aspects as well as those aspects which cannot be defined formally through organization. So our conclusion should highlight both these elements, both formal as well as informal elements of an organization. Right, so that means, is it relevant today? Yes, it has every relevance. So this is about the question. Coming to next question. Bernard posits the zone of indifference as the human condition that animates authority relationships and cooperations in modern organizations. Examine. Bernard posits the zone of indifference as the human condition that animates authority relationships and cooperation in modern organizations. Alright, so the question is about Bernard's theory, and Bernard's theory is specifically on zone of indifference. Alright, so which is seen as essential human condition, which is seen as essential human condition. Alright, in the modern organizations. So question is very simple to answer. Alright, so what is Bernard's theory? Alright, first of all, define what are organizations according to Bernard's concept of organization. Right, what is zone of indifference? So how zone of indifference is highlighted by Bernard as an essential character of communication. Alright, so zone of what is zone of indifference? What is the importance of zone of indifference in the words of Bernard? So why this zone of indifference is required? So acceptance of communication, rejection of communication depends upon zone of indifference as given by Bernard. So Bernard's concept of zone of indifference and its relationship with the acceptance of communication. Acceptance of communication. So zone of indifference as the essential human condition, right, that will determine the authority relationship, that is, it is the zone of indifference, right, that will determine superior subordinate relationships. Subordinate accepting the communication, right, superior exercising his authority, right. So superior's exercise of authority, subordinate's acceptance of authority lies in acceptance of communication only, which again in turn depends upon this zone of indifference. So zone of indifference which will determine authority relationships, that is superior subordinate relationships. Alright, so giving of communication, receiving of communication, exercising of authority, acceptance of authority. Alright, so cooperation, that is cooperation between the superior and subordinate in getting the fulfilling the objectives of organization. So the objectives of organization, objectives which is one of the fundamental pillar of an organization, can be achieved only when there is a cooperation between all the men. So when we define Bernard's theory of organization, we'll also highlight this what we call definition of organization as a system of cooperating individuals. Alright, so a system of individuals cooperating within the organization. Alright, so that is why this zone of indifference is a human condition, right, in determining the authority relationships as well as cooperation. So we need to highlight both these elements. Alright, so that means we should bring out the importance of zone of indifference. So when there will be zone of indifference, what are the challenges of zone of indifference? Right, so what is zone of indifference? What is the importance of zone of indifference? How the zone of indifference will promote authority relationships? How the zone of indifference will promote cooperation? What are challenges in building this zone of indifference? That is, what are the hurdles faced in creating this zone of indifference? So Bernard talks about zone of indifference, zone of difference also, right? So we should also highlight these hurdles in bringing out zone of indifference, right? So what happens if there is no indifference? What happens if there is no zone of indifference? Because this question is asked for 20 marks. We need to bring out the holistic picture of zone of indifference. So our answer should revolve around this topic of zone of indifference. So why, what is it, why it is required, what are the advantages, what are the hurdles faced in it, alright? So what is the role of a leader or executive in creating this zone of indifference, how it can be created? So all these points need to be highlighted, right? So this is the question is. Coming to the next question. The next question is on new public service. New public service celebrates what is distinctive, important and meaningful about public services. Discuss. Alright. So what is this new public service? Right. So first, what is NPS? Who gave this concept of NPS? The conditions for emergence of NPS. Alright, how NPS has distinctive features. Alright, I'm sorry, features of NPS, that is co-governance, community governance, alright, change role of bureaucracy, people participation. Alright, so we need to highlight this basic features of NPS. Alright, NPS and its features. So for last 3 years, continuously questions are asked on new public service. Alright, and how NPS is an improvement. Alright, in what way it is distinctive, in what way it is important, it is in what way it is distinctive from NPM. What is importance? Importance lies in its features. Alright, meaningfulness of NPS lies in bringing new orientation, listening not telling, right, servicing not steering. Alright, so these are the new things which are important in NPS. So the meaningfulness of what we call NPS, that is meaningfulness lies in bringing new orientation to public services. Alright, so in what way it is distinctive, why it is important, what way it is, what is the meaningfulness of public services. Alright, so we need to highlight these 3 points. Alright, so compare it with NPM, bring out the features here and bring out the new orientation brought by NPS. That's it, the answer is over. Alright, so next, coming to the next question. Strategic communication ought to be an agile communication process. Discuss the conceptualization of strategic communication for the government actions. Strategic communication ought to be agile. The question revolves around the topic of communication. So we have a topic, though not mentioned in main syllabus, earlier it was a part of the prelim syllabus, basic principles of public administration. So communication is one of the basic principles of public administration. So though it is not mentioned, still we can use, or we can take the insights from insights from Bernard's concept of communication, importance of communication as given by Bernard, right, and other thinkers, right? So first of all, what is strategic communication? All right, the basic meaning here, there is a word called as strategic, so we need to highlight this word of strategic. So what is strategic communication? So why communication is important? So first of all, what is communication? So first our answer should start from what is communication, what is strategic communication. All right, so why it is called as strategic communication? All right, how to build, or the principles need to be followed. All right, the principles need to be followed in building strategic communication. The basic challenges, right, in building these communication channels as well as particularly strategic communication channels, because it is very important for government actions. All right, so today's government, the complex government, right, which has larger array of functions, multiple functions, complex functions. All right, so as government is involved in multitudinous functions, as it necessary to ensure what we call coordination, cooperation among all the state agencies. So there is a need to build a formal and important, formal, precise, well-defined channels of communication, particularly in certain areas which are seen or which are regarded as strategic in nature. All right, so we need to highlight the basic challenges in building such strategic communications, that is basic challenges. Then how to overcome these challenges. So when we talk about strategic communication, need not be necessarily with certain elements of government functions like defense or the security. It can be even welfare functions of the state require strategic communication channels. Right? So how to build these communication channels? What are the normal challenges faced? How to overcome this? Right? So, and end the answer by having a very good conclusion. So communication is always seen as the lifeblood of government, lifeblood of organizations. No organization or no government can exist without the channels of communication. Right? So no government can achieve its objectives without properly defining its communication channels, particularly the strategic communication channels. Right? So that should be the answer.